And welcome everybody to another episode of the Pulse of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and I am joined by my co-host, Ron Caniff. Alfredo Arteaga will be showing up a little bit later, as well as Manny Chang. Hopefully he will be out of traffic, safe and sound soon, so he'll be able to come in and talk to us. In the meantime, Ron, I know this may be a loaded question, but how are you, sir?
I don't know. Got some kind of stomach bug or something last night, this morning.
So this is the flu game for you?
I think so. That the body aches and the throwing up, etc. So we'll just go with that and leave it be. I didn't think I'd be here, but I'm here for now. I figured if I could sit and BS on OnlyFins for the last 3 hours, I can at least sit here and talk Miami Heat. I mean Miami Dolphins.
We're talking both. So I want to go ahead and say, of course, thank you for coming on with me. You're toughing it out. I appreciate it.
No worries.
We've got a lot to talk about today. The Miami Dolphins, obviously, they're going to be having their season coming up fairly shortly. It's 100 days from now, according to all the NFL graphics. So that's when we can finally.
It's 100 days to the Sunday game, but I think it's 96 days to the KC Detroit game.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think that's what it is.
I'm so excited to watch Patrick Mahomes destroy the Detroit Lions.
I don't think that's going to happen. That's my honest truth.
You think Jared Goff is going to be able to hold off Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I think that Detroit will make it a game. I'm not saying they're going to win, but they'll make it a game. I think I don't think that the NFL puts Detroit. I don't think the NFL puts Detroit in that game thinking, oh, let's just put somebody they'll slaughter. That is not how the NFL works. Doesn't mean it won't happen.
Are you kidding? I would, if I were the NFL, I would want to start things off very strongly by going ahead and saying that Patrick Mahomes is going to show off just how incredible marketing-wise he is. Look at the best guy. Look at our poster child for the NFL. Isn't he amazing? And Dynasty Talks, W's in the chat. Yes, sir. I would think we're talking about the Miami Heat today a little bit, but we're talking about it in the context of what lessons can the Dolphins take from the Miami Heat as well as the Florida Panthers. And we will get into all that. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by U Brake Wheel Fix. U Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? U Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as U Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, U Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, like the wheel you see there, U Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at ubrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at ubrakewheelfix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to ubrakewheelfix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares over there at prizepicks.com. By the way, Nikola Jokic is available to be picked up for a free square, so you would probably want to take advantage of that. They also have special Taco Tuesday promos, which today is that day. So if you haven't already jumped on the taco, you'll be able to maybe get on that shortly. And there are other things going on, like the Flex Friday special, where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up at this point. So make sure you use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, use that promo code, get them to give you their $100 so you can play with and get started winning today. All right, so I want to go ahead and talk about this. I got a lot of stuff going on right here. So Aaron Andrews talking about it's amazing that the Heat are doing this with less talent than probably what the Dolphins have, quite a bit of big names. So yeah, that's actually pretty big contrast there. So whereas the Miami Heat do not necessarily have a lot of superstar names, and they only really have one. You could, if you're somebody who believes in Bam Adebayo that way, you could maybe argue that they have two.
They got a superstar in the playoffs in Jimmy, and they got a star in general in Bam, and the rest are great role players
they're guys
that can come and go in and out, as we saw this past week and whatnot, man. Some of these guys could just come in and all of a sudden some of these guys would be like what is that guy named Martin?
Caleb Martin. Yep.
Yeah, it'd be like the best dude on the floor out of nowhere. It's crazy, but a lot of that is just coaching, man, and teams not seeing it coming either.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see because I honestly, Ron, in the time that I have been watching sports and everything, I have never seen an entire sports town support each other the way that they're being supportive of each other right now. You see Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel went and he hyped up the Miami Heat game, but he didn't just hype up one Heat game. He was there for a bunch of Heat games, sitting there courtside alongside with Eric Spoelstra, just absorbing it, taking it all in. And I thought to myself, this isn't like a one-time cameo where he was invited to do a thing. He's just hanging around. He's doing stuff. And I was actually kind of surprised by how involved he was with the whole thing. And then he shows up at the Florida Panthers game and he's banging the drums and hyping everybody up. And now the Panthers are going to the finals. Like, one honestly makes me think, is Mike McDaniel like some kind of good luck charm for these other Florida teams?
We better have Spo, man. We better have Spo at some of our games.
Yeah, exactly, right? You would think.
Come on,
like,
dude. With all on the sideline.
With all the support that the Miami Dolphins have given to the Heat, the Panthers, their own head coaches there. Jalen Ramsey's talking about how he's going to mess with the scoreboard if he sees something screwy, which was which was funny because there was a lot of screwy things in that last Game 7, even though the Heat managed to absolutely dominate the Boston Celtics.
Yeah. Once they got into a 10-point or more, a double-digit lead, I think it only got under. I don't think it got closer than 8 anytime.
Yeah, but it was like, even then, like they put out all the stops, man. They put out Scott Foster, who is notorious for hating the Miami Heat. He put up some guy named some Brothers guy. I think his last name is Brothers. I'm not sure who it is. I don't know everybody about the NBA referees or anything like that.
We're NFL guys.
Yeah, we're NFL guys mostly, but we have Alfredo will be coming on to kind of like
he's definitely more an NBA guy. Well, he's more of an NFL guy than us too.
I mean, he is NFL. He has the ability to just kind of multitask in that way. So I am being for that. But I was watching these Heat games, and as a matter of fact, during Game 6, my fiance Holly, she was actually telling me the day after, it's like, did you stay up all night watching the game? I'm like, yes, I stayed up watching the game all night. And I told her how I couldn't sleep because just like everybody else in Miami, with the buzzer beater, we were up by 1 point, and with 0.1 seconds left, they did what the Boston Celtics ended up winning that game. And I thought to myself,
I still say they put on about 0.9 seconds more than they should have, but whatever.
It's fine. But either way, so all is fair in love and war. But you know what? I was very upset that night. I couldn't sleep well, and she was just like I told you were gonna I know I shouldn't have watched it. I have work in the morning.
Yeah, but man, that's sports, especially on the East Coast. That's the thing. That's the problem, especially on the East Coast, man. Sports is all about staying up late to watch games and waiting around for games to start. Football, the same thing. Just think about I remember once or twice I've been on the West Coast, Vegas, and I think I was in Vegas might have been during the playoffs at one point, like January. And man, I'm like, I get up, it's Vegas, so I'm up late, get up for some breakfast, and I look up at the TV and an NFL game starting, and it's not in England. You know what I mean? And you can watch the Sunday night game without passing out because it's 11:30 at night. That's one thing that's the West Coast has over the East Coast, man, is the game watching schedule is pretty good. Now, I'll admit sometimes too, if it's an East Coast game, you might be missing the beginning of the game trying to get home to watch it, but I'd take that trade-off, to tell you the truth. I'd take that trade-off. You are muted, sir. So Mr. Lewis is muted right now.
You could push the button, Mr. Moderator. You have that power.
Well, you don't know how to push your own button? Didn't you mute it to begin with?
Alf is telling me in the background that he can't get into the show. I don't know why, because...
Yeah, I had trouble getting into the show too. It took me almost 10 minutes to try and get in the show. It kept telling me there's an error over and over.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on because it doesn't seem like it should be doing this.
Well, anyway, so So let's talk about, you know what?
He says working. He says it's working now.
Okay, well, while you figure it out,
well, by the way, I want to highlight Dynasty Talks talking. Work doesn't matter. Sports do. Dynasty Talks, do you have a rich uncle that can give me $1 million loan with no interest and no payback?
I'm sorry, Lewis. Do you make $1 million at your job?
I would love to if I did. I would love to.
U-Haul or whatever?
Penske, but no.
Penske, sorry.
And now we have Alfredo Arteaga in here.
Wait,
I don't know what happened.
Before Alf talks, I just wanted to say one thing.
Okay.
I'd say the biggest lesson, and Alf could agree or disagree with me. I'm sure he'll have way more to add. I think the biggest lesson we could add from what can McDaniel bring and absorb from what he sees in Miami, man. And that's what I think we already started to build. And that is a winning culture, a mindset. The Heat have a mindset. Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler and these guys, they have a mindset like nobody else. And I think there's some guys on our team that have that mindset too. And we need to make sure that Tua, I'm not saying Tua doesn't have that mindset, but I know that Tyreek Hill has that mindset. I feel like Wilkins has that mindset. I'll bet you Ramsey has that mindset. I think Jalen Phillips has that mindset. We just need more guys that just believe so strongly that they're going to beat whoever's in front of them and do all the little things from week one, or in NBA case, game one, all the way to week 18 / game 82, and then into the playoffs. I think that's one of the biggest things that McDaniel can absorb. I think he knows that, and that's why he was talking to Spoelstra during training camp, and Spo was there last year in training camp. He knows that. He wants to see a winning mentality on the sideline from the coaches, from the players. And he recognized that right away. And that's part of why he's at these games too. It's all about that culture. It's all about the 305, everything. I think it's important. That's it. That's all I have. Alf, you want to go?
I didn't hear the question coming in, so I don't know what.
I didn't actually ask. It wasn't actually a question. I just was stating.
He was making a general statement.
I was just making a general statement about what McDaniel can absorb and bring from the time he's spending over there. Kind of, I don't know. I guess not really on the sideline. I guess he's on the sideline a little bit, but they're, watching the games and right there talking to Spo. Obviously, him and Spo are building some kind of relationship. I don't know how deep that goes, but I think that culture piece, and I know people talk culture like it's some kind of cliche, but it matters, man. It really does matter. It's not everything, but it matters.
Yeah, it's about, it's about having a philosophy, sticking to it, not deviating from it, and having some continuity in leadership all the way around, and in philosophy, and as far as the type of players that you want to bring in. Like, you want to bring in a certain type of player, and it's not only, how fast they run or how high they jump or their height and weight or their profiles or even how well they played in college. It's about what kind of people they were. Are they hard workers? Are they why guys or yes guys? Sometimes it's good to have the why guys, and when I say the why guys, is the guys that you ask them to do something and they respond with why. Okay. Sometimes it's good to have something like that. But if you look at what the Dolphins have done, it's part of it. Like, that's another one right there. Dennis, he says, not having
a ping pong table.
Not having a ping pong table.
That's some Pittsburgh Steeler Ben Roethlisberger shit right there. Like, whatever.
Yeah, they had now they have a basketball court. Okay, so it's gonna get competitive out there. I don't mind stuff like that. I thought the ping pong table was a great idea. Have those guys compete on off days? Yeah, why not? Well, what's wrong with that? But it really is about having a philosophy and having that same type of guy. You could go through our team. Look, and I'm going to even do this exercise blind. I'm going to go into the depth chart and then show you what I mean, okay? By the way, Our Lads has a pretty good depth chart.
It's a depth chart.
Oh, yeah, they're
the Dolphins.
Our Lads is the one I used to use back in my, ultra obsessed fantasy days. I completely forgot about that site. I remember back in the day, the Our Lads depth chart was like one of my little secret weapons that I would print off for every single team back 4 or 5 years ago when I was completely obsessed with any fantasy league I was in. I didn't care if it was free.
If Prize Picks existed back then, you probably would have been all over it, Ron.
You know what? Probably, and I might get back into some classic yearly fantasy or redraft fantasy this year. It's been a long time. I kind of miss it.
Yeah, like if you look at the team, okay, and I've spoken to pros about this before. I spoke to Bryant McKinney one. You guys remember Bryant McKinney, right?
I remember Bryant
Yes.
McKinney. He was apparently good at once upon a time, but not anymore.
Not when we got him.
He was actually okay for that 1 year that he was with us, but
Yeah, he was
he
all
was
right.
like he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, you know, like he was a borderline Hall of Famer. He was just in the wrong conference, you know. He was in the conference with Willie Roaf and Walter Jones. And back then the Pro Bowl actually meant something, so they would only take 2 left tackles. They wouldn't take 3. So Bryant McKinney every single year was one of the best left tackles in football. The problem was that all the best left tackles in football were in the NFC, so he couldn't get in. But he told me one time that the way he would build the team was fine. At every unit, you're going to get your best 4 or 5 guys, but I'm going to mix in one vet in every single unit. One guy who's been around the block and is going to have a long career, that's had a long career, so you can kind of show the ropes to the younger guys, and it's gonna balance your team. Because if you have too many young guys, you kind of have what we had in 2019, which is a team that's basically not going to go anywhere. Or even you could go back to I believe it was the 2017 team, the team after 2016. They tried to get a little younger. They jettisoned some of their older guys, and you immediately could see the drop off in leadership, right? So you look at the team right now, okay? And this is I'm just going to go right down to it, okay? Jalen Waddle actually, oddly enough, was never a captain at Alabama, okay?
Well, just because Bama just had so many.
But Tyreek Hill
guys.
has been a captain every single year in the NFL, okay? Braxton Berrios was a captain at UM and was a captain 1 year with the Jets. Teron Armstead's been a captain every single year he's been in the NFL.
Yes.
He was a captain in New Orleans. He was a captain in Miami. You go down the list. Liam Eichenberg was a captain at Notre Dame. Connor Williams was a captain at Dallas. And he was a captain at Tech. He was a team captain overall for Texas. Okay, Robert Hunt was a captain at Louisiana Tech. Austin Jackson was the captain at USC. Are you starting to get the Durham Smythe was oddly enough captain for 1 year at Notre Dame. Tua Tagovailoa was a captain for Alabama, and he's a captain for the Dolphins right now.
Finally, because you know how that whole narrative started. Why isn't Tua a team captain?
And you barely even see Tua narratives right now. I love it.
Of all the running backs, I don't think any of them were captains except for Alec Ingold, who was a captain with the Raiders.
He counts.
Okay, so that counts. On defense, Raekwon Davis was the captain at Alabama. Christian Wilkins was the captain at Clemson and is a captain now on our team. Jalen Phillips was a captain at UCLA. Then he left UCLA and he became a captain at University of Miami. Okay, David Long was a captain at Tennessee. All right. Jerome Baker was a captain here for a couple of years. I don't remember if he was a captain at Ohio State or not. Bradley Chubb was a captain in Denver, and he probably will be a captain here. Xavier Howard was a captain here. Brandon Jones was a captain at Texas. Javon Holland was a captain at Oregon, and he's a captain on this team right now. Jalen Ramsey has been a captain everywhere he's been, from FSU all the way up, and I'm pretty certain they're going to put a C on his chest this year. So you see what I'm getting at? And you know, it's the build of the team. It's the type of people that you want on it, and the guys that you want to build, you know, going forward.
Hey, Alf, real quick. Do you? I don't know why this reminds me of this, but do you remember last year when training camp started and everybody's all obsessed with Tua needs to be first out of the tunnel, Tua needs to be first in the building, all that, and then everybody comes in the building and we never saw it. Like people were saying, see, Tua wasn't first, because he was already in the building, like bringing the guys in with the coach.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was just thinking about that sort of how that was funny. Like those narratives on Tua, man. It's hilarious to watch those just disappear so quickly.
I also remember the day when for some reason I thought that practice was at 9 and practice was actually at 10:30, and I actually beat all the players to the practice facility. And I was in
Alf was first in the building,
and I was in an elevator with, of all people, Mike McDaniel.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's all a bunch of nonsense. As long as you're there on time, as long as you're in the meeting room, you put in the extra work, You know, uh, that's what actually matters, and continuity. All of every you want me to tune you completely out? Start talking about firing this guy and firing the other guy and firing this over whatever. You know, like I pay no attention to that. That's just a bunch of nonsense.
Well, if
Okay.
I don't mind talking about firing some guy if the guy you're going to go get is a clear upgrade, e.g., Vic Fangio over Josh Boyer.
Yeah, of course. But I'm talking more of like the front office personnel. You know, when people are fearful for their jobs, they won't do their jobs well. They'll do them in a way that's going to cover their ass. That's why Mike Tannenbaum was such a terrible GM toward the end, because he was trying to look for the quick fix to try to get that extra win that will put the team in the playoffs and will save his job for an extra year. That happens all the time in the NFL, and it was happening here for a very, very long time.
Yeah, people are, GMs and coaches are surpassing obvious improvements on the team for the long term for a slighter improvement for the short term. Like there's no doubt that happens, which then brings your team down even further, and what causes the next guy to have to come in and just clean up a mess.
Absolutely. And I'm reminded of that offseason when Tannehill got injured and they went out and they got Jay Cutler. Right? Their reasoning for getting Jay Cutler was that Jay Cutler was going to be good enough to basically supplant what Ryan Tannehill was.
And because Adam Gase liked Jay Cutler. Just straight up. Here's $10 million.
Man, I think Tannehill was. I'm always protecting this guy. I like him. I don't know. I think Tannehill was.
When did this change, Ron? I remember
it
that
never changed.
Yes,
dude.
Yes,
I've
did,
always
Ron.
been a Tannehill guy.
No. When I came on Squish the Fish, we first met because I was defending Tannehill and you were trying to trash him.
Nah, I think you're wrong. We need to go back and find those episodes.
Oh yeah, the very first one. Huh?
What? How can you trust a guy? What a guy says who has a podcast called "Unsquish the Fish"? Anyway, man, let's be honest. I'm just kidding.
Unsquish. How do you unsquish? If you squish a fish, it's squished forever, isn't it?
I don't know. We had to unsquish him out.
If it's a puffer,
we were
fish,
terrible, buddy.
Blow into it and it'll be.
Yeah, it's like a blowfish.
I don't know how you get to that, but one thing we talked about on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. We're on vacation.
Podcast, Alf?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you can't tell because we haven't been on the air for like a week, and we won't be on the air for a month.
You need a break. I wasn't even going to ask you for this month. I thought you were trying to take a real break, but I guess only from your podcast.
Yeah, I'm taking a break from my podcast. I'll come on here, but like we posed this question, like who are the Dolphins more like, and who they should be more like going forward, or at least right now this offseason. Okay. Should they be more like the Panthers or should they be more like the Heat? If you're more like the Heat, you're basically saying, look, we're going to stand pat. We believe in what we did last year. We believe in what we have. And we're not going to make too many philosophical changes going forward. If you're like the Panthers a year ago.
Ripped it apart.
Yeah, the Panthers a year ago, a lot of fans were saying, what in the hell are they doing? They had the best record in all of hockey. They won the President's Trophy. They make the second round of the playoffs. They get killed. Okay. And then what do? They break up the entire core. And people are thinking, what are they doing? Well, what they did was that they recognized that what they had was not good enough to win in the playoffs. And they sought to revamp that. I'm wondering, do the Dolphins need that philosophical change? Not that they have to, revamp anything. If they were going to revamp anything, it was going to be the offensive line because the rest of the roster is pretty good. But I'm thinking more along the lines of their philosophy. Do they need to change and go more to a play action style team or running the ball? They're going to have to run the ball, become more of a run-centric team, more conservative on defense, which seems like what they're going to do. Or do you keep the same ethos as you did last year and throw it all over the lot? Maybe even expand on that and throw it more.
I don't think they're going to resist. I don't think Mike McDaniel can resist dude. I don't think he can resist throwing the ball with this offense. And now Tua in a second year, the receivers in a second year of it. Man, I just don't think he can resist it. I know they're going to try and run more, but I still have a feeling his inclination is going to be when all hell breaks loose, or if it's just not going the way he wants it to, man, let's just like what did Marino say back in the day when he was down? I don't care what call comes into the huddle. We ain't running it again. We're throwing every single time till we're caught back up. Like that was his mentality. Now, I'm not saying Tua would do that because it's a different day in the NFL. No, nobody really does that. Maybe Brady did. I don't even think he did.
Aaron Rodgers is gonna do it.
Yeah, maybe, depending.
Patrick Mahomes is going to do it. Look, any team that has a future Hall of Fame quarterback is going to spend a lot more time throwing it than they are going to be running the ball.
I think Mike McDaniel will be that way. I think he'll get into that mindset if they start to get down in a game like he was with Baltimore.
I don't even think they're going to need that much. I don't even think they're going to need that much. Me personally, my gut feeling, I wish they would run the ball more, especially if they acquired Dalvin Cook. Especially if they acquired Dalvin Cook.
I think they don't need Dalvin Cook to run the ball.
I know we've already had that discussion.
We had that an hour-long conversation last week. So
on it, man. Okay, you know what? Fine. Here, Alf. Do the Dolphins pick up Dalvin Cook? Yes or no?
Tiebreaker here.
I think if he's cut, he's a Dolphin.
Thank you.
Okay. Step 2. Should the Dolphins do that? And if they do, how much? I know you think so, Lewis. I want to ask Alf. And for how much are you willing? Do you think is the amount to spend on him?
Well, here's the thing: they're gonna have about $13 million to spend, right? They need the earmark about $3 million of that, no matter what, right? So they have up to $10 million to rent him for a year. I think that's a little bit too much.
That's free. Yeah,
I mean, if they were gonna pay $10 million, they would have traded for him.
No, I don't know about that. Now that's where I'm going to say wrong because I think, they would have done some kind of pick swap or something, but I just think Greer is going to be.
Let's say, look, I know for a fact that they spoke during the draft. Okay, now let's say that they would have pulled off some type of pick swap for Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook would have came over with those numbers on his spreadsheet. What if he says no? What the hell are you going to do? You just did a pick swap, and the guy's telling you he's going to hold you up for the $13 million he's owed this year.
Now, you would know more than me, Alf, but when you start negotiating with a team over trading for a player, once the compensation is set, isn't that usually the time then where they'll allow you or the GM to speak at least with the agent? Isn't that usually how it works so that we can figure out, hey, if we make this trade, are we going to even be able to sign this guy?
Yeah, usually it's like, okay, what do you say to swapping 6-round picks this year? And they say, yeah, okay, that's a deal. Okay, fax me over or send me over your consent,
official offer, right?
Yeah, your official consent that I could speak to the player's agent.
Gotcha.
Then you place a very fast call. And you say, look, we're thinking about doing this deal, but and this all has to be on a handshake, right? But this deal has to be accompanied with a restructure of the remaining money that's on his deal. So we were thinking this, and then they'll probably send a proposal. They'll sign off on it, and then the trade is done. And then when he gets over, you're redoing the contract. Now this is going to be a little bit different because if he's cut, he's going to become a free agent. He's vested, so he doesn't go to waivers. Okay, so they cut him. They cut him on June 1st. He's just an outright free agent, and he's free to sign with whoever he wants.
I mean, the Dolphins couldn't even really trade for him if they wanted to right now because the moment they trade for him, his current salary is on their books and they're in the negative, and you are not allowed to be in the negative once the league year starts at any time. If you put yourself in the negative, that means I don't know who or how they figured this out, but somebody gets like instantly cut or multiple players get automatically cut like it goes on auto, man, like AI shit. And I remember this happened, if you recall, was it Denver or Baltimore? I think Denver with Elvis. I can't remember who it was. Yeah, where he got like Denver screwed up and ended up doing something like didn't get a trade put in time by like midnight or something. And
because it's
hit the free agent market, just gone.
It's a really interesting thing. The way you do it is like this. Like sometimes you have an opportunity, right? So like, let's say you're negotiating a trade deal at 9:00 in the morning, right? And you're on the phone with the other GM at 9:15, and then you finally agree. You say, "Look, I want player A," and what do you say to a 3rd round pick? The guy on the other end says, "Deal," and you send it into the league, And then they look at the numbers, and then your own cap person is going to say, look, we are now over $650,000. We got to get under by that amount by the end of the day. So you start looking through your books, who can get released to save the $650,000? You know what I mean? That's what happened to Denver that year with Elvis Duvermill. They needed to find $1.4 million on a restructure, I think it was, and then nobody wanted to do it. So they approached a bunch of different people on the team, and they all said no, they wouldn't do it because some of them had to be givebacks. And then the deal fell through because they couldn't cut enough money by the end of the day, and they couldn't afford the player. So that's the way how that will work. You know, if he's cut with a June 1st designation, like I said, it's completely different. He's a free agent. You know, you could just bring him into the building, and then you're basically working with the computer in front of you. You're working with the cap right in front of you, and you're figuring it out. Okay, like what can, you know, do we want a little bit of protection so this is not a rental? You know, we want you around for at least 2 years. What do you say to a team option for the second year? And if we pick it up, we'll guarantee the second year or something like that, you know? Where, you know, if I had to guess the type of deal that Dalvin Cook would probably take is somewhere around 2 years, $12 million with damn near all of it guaranteed. You know, something like that. Because that would get him most of his money that's owed to him this year. Because he has an understanding that if he plays this year for Minnesota, he is guaranteed to be cut, you know, the following season. Like that's happening. Dalvin Cook is either getting cut on June 1st or he's getting cut the following offseason. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting few days here, a couple of days. I guess it's on. Yes, when the NBA Finals starts. Yes, on Thursday.
I suspect that the Vikings are going to take that money and they're going to say, hasta la bye-bye. They don't want him around. I don't think he wants to stick around anyway. And, I mean, for what it's worth, and I know we take him with a grain of salt, but Nick Hicks has been basically telegraphing Dalvin Cook wants Miami. Dalvin Cook wants Miami. So if he really wants to go home that badly, he'll take pretty much whatever, as long as it's respectable.
Aaron Anders asked the question, who's the Jimmy Butler on the Dolphins roster? My opinion is Tyreek Hill. Yeah. Alf, you have another name besides him? Or do you even agree that's close?
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey. Those are the two guys.
I don't know for Jalen yet because I haven't seen Jalen
one on defense and one on offense. Jalen Ramsey is the guy. He's the name. The name that everybody knows and everybody respects is Jalen Ramsey on defense and Tyreek Hill on offense. Like those are the two guys that nobody in the NFL is going to, that no commentator, no nothing is going to be able to look at this guy and say, okay, he's questionable at best, you know, because Xavier Howard does not get a lot of respect from the national crowd. Like some people every once in a while, don't forget about Xavier Howard, but they don't remember him very often either. Bradley Chubb off to the side. Christian Wilkins does not get the respect that he deserves. So who else do you have on that defense that could be the Jimmy Butler, I guess? And the only one that comes to mind is Jalen Ramsey. He's the only guy on there that is universally known as an elite player.
This is funny. Edris equal Austin Jackson.
Who's? I'm sorry. Wait. Is that a hockey guy?
No. Edris is Bam Adebayo's real name, and people call him Edris when he doesn't play well.
I did not know that.
Immaculate said Dolphins will never be on the Heat's level. I'm curious. I asked him in the chat why.
Back in the day, the Heat would never be on the Dolphins level. So it just depends on who's the superstar at the time. If Tua Tagovailoa reaches the ceiling that we think he will, you watch how fast the Dolphins will be back on the Heat's level.
Alf, I have a question for you.
Well, I'll say one thing. Dolphins have never been on the Heat's level.
No, not in.
I mean, as far as actual championships, obviously not. But
because if you think, in the 70s.
In the 70s is where they came
the Marino years. Come on, the Marino years.
No, man, they went to one Super Bowl. They went to two.
Okay, but you're talking about championships. There were years where the Dolphins were a superstar team. Just because the Heat go to the finals every other year doesn't mean they always win.
You have to think about why if the three of us were doing a Heat show, that live number is like 150. Well, number one,
that's because Ethan is a Heat guy.
Yeah. Well, that's number one.
Works.
But number two, you got to think about the young people watching and what they've seen over the last 20 plus years from the Dolphins versus the Heat. I mean, multiple championships, multiple finals, Eastern Conference finals. Like,
Yeah, you got to
Game
understand.
7's galore, man. Like, come
You got to
on.
understand how it's worked.
Yeah.
The Dolphin fan sits around and waits, right? And
Forever.
we're waiting. We're waiting to
22
build
years
this
since
team.
we won the
We're
playoff
waiting to
game.
build this team, so it's right. That's why the Dolphins have gained a lot of fans in the last few years, because this build has actually made sense. They said, look, we're going to have this 1 year, we're tearing it down. The next year, we're going to add enough talent where we're going to compete. They did. They were 10-6, right? Then they said, look, we're going to get a little bit better. They went 9-8. They kind of took a little step back, but it was kind of understandable. But they won the 7 in a row, so that felt kind of nice. And then they said, look, now we're going to start going for it, because we're going to have a 2-year window here to spend a lot of money. And then they made the playoffs. You know what I mean? So it was like a natural progression. All throughout the Miami Heat's history, there's been this natural progression where they have a build, the build takes them where they want to go, then they tear it down very quickly, and then inside of 3 years, they're back at where they started it from again. You know what I mean? And that's the faith that they've built up with this with their fan base, is that they know that their valleys are never going to be that far. You know what I mean? They're never going to be that low.
But they have had the I guess what's the word? The benefit of having somebody like a Pat Riley to run the ship the entire time. The Dolphins have not had that benefit. So
and that's part of the problem. That's what I spoke about.
But it's harder to find one, I think, in football than in basketball. Like
you got to have the continuity, and you have to have the conviction on what you're actually doing, that what you're doing is actually working and it's gonna work. Okay. If you're tearing it down every 2-3 years, you start right back from zero. You got to think of it that way. And that's what they kept doing here over and over and over again for almost 15 years. You know, what they did here through those little middle regimes. And to be honest with you, it was all set up through the betrayal of Nick Saban. So
yeah, so you're saying, like, since post Dave Wanstead, right? Yeah. So after Wanstead, is that when we hired Saban?
You know,
we have somebody in between.
I had talked about all the coaches that could have compared with Mike McDaniel, and Nick Saban completely lost. I completely forgot that he was even a head coach. Like, I skipped
but
right
he brought
over
in.
him.
Look, you could disagree with his program, but he actually did bring in a program. You know, like, he had an idea of what he wanted to do. You know, I think they would have gone somewhere. You know, it was just about picking the right quarterback. They didn't pick the right quarterback.
No, man. And everybody,
but when he leaves you,
pointing fingers like this for that.
But when he leaves you high and dry, and then your answer to that is to try to bring some type of offensive guru in well, I even forgot
Cam Cameron.
Name Cam Cameron. You know, if that's what you,
I forgot him too during my thing.
You know, if that's your answer, and then he's a complete disaster. And then what did they do?
Tony Sperano. Parcells takes over and brings in Sperano.
Right, and then
I like Sperano.
Then they actually have like an ethos, right? Like, they actually believe in what they want to be, right?
Yeah, they load up on that man. They load up on that offensive line. One of the best lines we've had in 20 years.
Yeah, and they were going to run the ball, and then you look at the team, and then from one day to the next, you could say, okay, this team, you could tell they're different. They're a big football team. Like, they believe in size, strength. Like, this is a different day here, right? And then what happens? They picked the wrong quarterback, and they fell in love with Chad Henne. Chad Henne was terrible. You know, they just.
Should they have drafted Matt Ryan? Should they have drafted Matt Ryan in hindsight? Is that what they should have done instead of Jake Long? Yeah,
absolutely. And that was a complete. You know, that was really on Parcells, because Parcells had like a checklist that he used to follow.
Oh yeah, the 4-year starter deal.
Yeah, all that bullshit. And when you looked at Matt Ryan, the problem with Matt Ryan was the turnover count as a senior. It was extremely high. It was so high that when the Dolphins take Jake Long, you think to yourself, you know what? It's 50-50 whether Matt Ryan's going to be any good or not. So I'm fine with Jake Long, because I'm pretty sure that he's going to be, you know, a Hall of Famer. He's going to be here for 15 years, and he's going to make 12 Pro Bowls. Then that first year, he makes first team All-Pro. And you're looking like an absolute genius when Matt Ryan is doing nothing. You know what I mean?
Didn't Matt Ryan win an MVP when Mike McDaniel was there, or Kyle? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
good point there as well, Scuba, that he did. We forget that he did, but they had that one good season. Wasn't that the year that they blew the 27-3?
The 28-3 lead. Yes.
28-3 lead. Yeah.
Yeah, that was that year.
I mean, I'll put it this way, I guess. The Dolphins have not had they've obviously had their issues, but I feel like to say that the Dolphins have never been on the level of the Heat, I would make a different distinction for that, because back in the 70s when they were with Don Shula in his prime and they were winning Super Bowls, and then Dan Marino,
the greasy days,
and then Dan Marino showed up. Yes, they only
Yep.
made it to one Super Bowl with Dan Marino, but that wasn't Dan Marino's fault. And they were every single year consistently. They were highly competitive. They were in there. They were constantly in the conversation.
I think Dan Marino had 1 or 2 losing seasons in 17 years, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's what I'm saying, though, because the Miami Heat make it to the playoffs every single year. It feels like they don't always go deep, but they always make it.
It's easier, and I'm going to say this: it's easier to make the playoffs in the NBA because more teams make the playoffs.
Teams make the playoffs, and there are less players that you have to consider. You have to make a team. You have to make a roster of 53 guys in the NFL, and if one guy goes down, you could still ruin everything. If something happens to Teron Armstead, the offensive line is screwed. If something happens to Tua, the entire offense is screwed.
Yeah, but let me tell you this, where it's a little bit different and where the two sports are kind of comparable, that you could kind of compare them. In the NBA, to get past the first round, it's not every team that wins a first round series. Like what the Miami Heat have done the last 4 years is like it's pretty special.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not taking that away from them.
Okay. They've in 4 years they've been to 2 finals and they went to 1 Eastern Conference final. And the 1 year that they didn't make it, it was the year that they had the shortened off season, if you remember. And everybody was injured because they had just finished playing and they were forcing them to play like 2 months later again. So that was the only thing. But that's inside of 4 years, 3 trips to the Eastern Conference finals, 2 finals. You know, the only thing that's comparable to that is if you're getting past the first round in the NBA, that's like a comparison to maybe winning a first round playoff game in the NFL. Okay. Now, winning in the second round is really difficult in the NBA. You could go franchise for franchise. In fact, the 76ers, year in and year out, keep being highly, highly touted. And I don't think they've made it past the second round in like 22 years. Or something like that.
They keep losing in the second round to different teams under different circumstances for different reasons. Like they finally fired Doc Rivers, right? Now they've got Nurse, right? The old Toronto coach.
Yeah, but that's
that they picked up just now.
So, you know, Philadelphia is like stuck in this purgatory where Miami was for a little while in the 90s, where they would win a playoff game, they would go to the second round, and then that's where it would end.
Is this back like the Alonzo Mourning days? And
very similar to those Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway days.
Tim Hardaway, holy crap. That was a long man. Isn't his son in the NBA? Like been in the NBA for a while now?
Yeah. So I see Scuba here talking about how the Dolphins were the winningest franchise for the longest time. And I was just looking back at the Miami Heat's record.
I know when they gave it up. I know when they give up that lead. They give up that lead. I think they gained it briefly. They lost it in 2001, and then they gained it back briefly in 2003. The 2004 season is when they gave it up for good. The winningest franchise in NFL.
Aren't we still top 6 or something, though?
Yeah, they're like number 5 or something like that.
As crap as we've been, so many seasons, either mid to crap over the past 20 years. I mean, we've had a 1-15 season. We've had a 2-14 season, and not the year we drafted Ronnie Brown. After we drafted Ronnie Brown, I mean, we've had some bad seasons, man. To be even 6, it shows you how good they were from, you know, the late 60s or 70 on. Once Shula, he coached the Colts for a couple of years, right? The Baltimore Colts, and then went to Miami.
But that's why I was looking at the record of the Miami Heat over the course ever since their founding. They weren't always the juggernaut that we know them as they are today. So that's why to say never, it just feels like it's a little bit of a.
But you have to consider who were the people around. Nobody was watching YouTube shows. I mean, you had ESPN.
Okay, but
that was it.
That doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is
were
you
the
have to
Dolphins
think
ever
about-
on par with the Heat? There was a time,
Yeah,
as long ago as
before
it was,
most of the-
where the Dolphins were better than the Heat. In fact, nobody cared about the Heat at the time because the Heat weren't good. Now they're known as this incredible juggernaut of an NBA franchise. So of course everybody cares about the Heat. They don't remember the time when the Heat wasn't all that special.
Yeah, but every single person watching this show right now, including you, Lewis, on this show, weren't around during that time. And
No, it wasn't.
it's so that's why I think that's part of why that the Heat, like kind of bringing it back to our original conversation, right? Like why the Heat have such even a culture like in the 305. I don't know if that sounds dumb me saying that, but I think it's kind of true. In South Florida, right? They have like there's something different about the Heat in South Florida than there is about the Dolphins. I mean, it's just like I bet you in Detroit, yeah, there's Lions fans. But man, there are Pistons fans, and even though the Pistons haven't been great recently, they've had
Who
some
talks
good
about
teams.
the Detroit Pistons?
Yeah, well,
I
and
almost forgot the Pistons were a thing.
Yeah, but in Detroit, more people know the Pistons, even the Ben Wallace days and things like that, being good. Definitely more people in South Florida know the Heat as being a good competitive team, getting to the Eastern Conference Championship, getting to the finals, winning finals, the LeBron days, the Wade days, the Shaq day. I mean, you name it. They've had so much, and the Dolphins have had the Wildcat 3 playoff wins, or not wins, appearances, I think, maybe 4 with this latest one since 2000. I mean, that's it, man. We've had a few special Monday night games where we beat teams we shouldn't have, where maybe we somehow snuck one against New England, or that's it, man. We're hardcore Dolphins fans. We have had very little to celebrate, and we celebrate the most mid stuff as Dolphins fans because we haven't had any choice. We've had zero choice. I feel like that's changed. I feel like this year it's changed for me. And I feel more, I was excited about the season last year. This year I'm as excited, but I'm confident that the Dolphins are just a good team this year, man. I just feel like it's all going to click into place for us. But, kind of thought that before, right? Now I go back and think, why did I think that before? And I see how dumb I was and how full of fan eyes I was. But I don't know about you, Alf. I mean, what do you think? Don't you feel like it's all just going to click for them this year?
Yeah, they're building towards something, and that's something you can say now that you couldn't say most other years. You could tell that they are actually building toward actually trying to do something, because the way that they've manipulated the salary cap and the roster, it's obviously that they're building it up, right? Like, just all you got to do is just go to Spotrac and look at the numbers that they have devoted to certain units, and you can see where the guys that are going to come off from the guys that they're going to pay, and it's kind of telling you how they're building the team, right? And where they're allocating the money. Like, the money's damn near all spent already. So this is almost a complete roster. This is the roster you're going to have going forward. So they've made a decision on this build.
I 100% believe that if there was allowed like a luxury tax or something in the NFL, Stephen Ross would be paying every single tax that there was.
He would, but he hasn't needed to because Greer has been we've been kind of lucky with some of our salary cap people and some of our GMs. I mean,
oh no, Chris Greer and Brandon Shore have been amazing. And,
yeah,
by the way,
Donna Ponte was good back in the day too. And like, what was that? 2013, 14. Like, she was not bad, man. She worked in the NFL office for a reason, man. She was one of the better people, one of the better cap managers.
But this is what I want to bring up real quick, because there was a tweet that I wanted to respond to on the show, not over there on Twitter, because I really didn't want to start a whole discussion about it. But the idea that Chris Greer has brought in like 8 and 9 worthy talent, because the comparison is between Chris Greer and Pat Riley. Obviously, he's not Pat Riley, but I said that he was the godfather of the NFL because he was able to pull off these amazing trades that nobody who imagined in their right mind would be able to get Jalen Ramsey, an all-pro corner, for a 3rd-round pick, and Hunter Long. Nobody looks at that. Nobody thinks that's realistic. Madden, if you tried to simulate it, would not even allow you to do that. It would be like, are you out of your freaking mind? You're going to have to give me at least 2 first-round picks.
There's been 2 GMs that have been wheeling and dealing for a while now, and that's Howie Roseman and Chris Greer. The difference between the two is that Howie Roseman has a Super Bowl appearance. and he had built a Super Bowl winner already. So
he gets lucky with his head coaches.
Not necessarily. He's lucky with the rosters as well. I don't know. Don Shula and Pat Riley, as far as coaches, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But as GMs,
but as far as executives, nah. Pat Riley is that.
Yeah, but you gotta understand that Pat Riley is not the one that's out there hunting for people like Caleb Martin and fucking Duncan Robinson and Gabe Vincent and guys like that. He has very capable people under him that are in their scouting department and their player development. And Adam Simon, Chet Kammer, those guys, like they know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for and the kind of player that they need. And that's what Miami needs. And I think they're getting it as of late.
They still need help in the offensive line scouting.
Yeah, it's almost like they gave.
Well, they got a million eyes on it. So,
but none good ones. They're all blind.
Yeah, I guess not. I think they were scared to even.
DJ Shafe got claimed by the Packers. If the Packers claim an offensive lineman you dumped, you messed up.
I have a question for you, Alf. So let's say a couple days come around, right? Let's say we don't sign Cook, and Cam Fleming's gone. $3 million we need probably, right? We got to keep $3 million for the rookies, what have you, if we even need that much, close to that. What are we doing with that $10 million? Are we just going to keep it? Do you have besides Cook? Do you have any other guys in mind that you could see Miami seriously considering at any position for this team? Backup defensive tackle, offensive line, what have you?
Well, I would personally try to devote as much money as possible this season. But they could just roll it over into a future extension. Like that's entirely possible.
Okay.
But as far as what's out there, there's not much out there.
No, there isn't, man.
I mean,
so pretty much it's Cook and that's it.
I mean, that depends on what position you're looking at. I know Ron and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Just I would not be upset if we're talking about just adding a body to the rotation on the defensive line. Wait a few weeks and wait a few weeks and bring in Ndamukong Suh. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, if he wants
just for the heck of it, he played for what, $1 million just to be in the rotation. He's not that guy anymore, but in a rotational role, why not?
Maybe. I mean, we need a backup defensive tackle. He's not terrible. I think we could use that on that spot. We need another John Jenkins.
I'm done.
I think he could do worse than Ndamukong Suh to replace him.
For $1 million, you could do a lot worse than Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah. What do you think, Alf? You think a backup defensive tackle possibly?
I think more of a 5-tech is I think what they need.
Okay.
The more I look at the roster like that, yeah, that's kind of like that's their only glaring need. If you don't think that Brandon Pilley's going to make it, then I guess you need a nose tackle as well.
I was just going to say, so who do you like to make the team as a defensive tackle in general, whether that's I got to look at them in camp. Or what have you.
I got to look at them in camp, but evidently they're going to give Brandon Pilley a very, very long look to play that John Jenkins role, which is kind of an important role. John Jenkins played, I believe, something like 10 snaps a game. It's important because he's going to play a lot of third and shorts, fourth and shorts. Like, those are important on the goal line.
And there's still always the possibility. This is where the second wave of free agency basically starts. All the veteran guys who are getting dumped because they're too expensive.
That's true. There might be guys out there that aren't available right now that we're not aware of here in a couple days, maybe. And then after camp or during, once camp ends and they make cuts, there's spots there too that could maybe something shakes loose that seems to fit what we need. So I would go ahead and we're going to get ready to close up with this. If we're talking about what lessons the Dolphins have taken from the Heat and the Panthers, Alf, you laid it out pretty well. With the Panthers, the question was you basically tear up the whole thing and change the philosophy. With the Heat, you're basically sticking with it and just rolling with what you already have. The Dolphins, just like the title says, they've taken lessons from both. They are standing pat to an extent because Mike McDaniel is still basically going to be running what is essentially the same offense, same quarterback, same running backs, wide receivers they added more pieces, but it's going to be basically the same core. So Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, they're still the same guys there. Offensive line is the same, sadly. It's almost exactly the same.
On
bro.
defense, they kept pretty much everybody who was important. Nick Needham's still going to be sticking around if you need him. Javon Holland is there. Brandon Jones coming back. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, Jerome Baker. But at the same time, they did not stand pat. They took what they took from the Panthers. They said, we're not done yet. We're adding Jalen Ramsey. We're adding David Long Jr. We're adding Braxton Berrios. We're adding Chosen Anderson if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say maybe he's still got something to offer. They may decide to bring in Dalvin Cook. If they do, that's another piece that did they need it? No. But would they gain something from it? Absolutely. So they're kind of taking the best of both worlds in the sense that the Heat and the Panthers in how they're viewing things.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But they could easily be a lot more like the Panthers if it's week one and then all of a sudden you see they're running out of completely different sets and they're more of a running team and they're built around the play action pass.
If they do, I will be absolutely shocked. I'm not gutsy enough to make a bet with Ron because I don't know if I have Chad's kind of luck, but I don't think that they're gonna suddenly decide to be a running football team.
I'm terrible at football bets. You should.
I know, but I'm not Chad.
Hey, even Alf knows that. I think me and him had a bet. It was a couple of years ago. I lost a Ulysses S. Grant to Mr. Alf there.
Yeah, listen.
I paid when the clock strikes 0 too, man. I know you remember. You didn't have to chase me down for that. The moment the clock strikes 0, I hit that button.
The second I make a bet with Ron is the time that Ron finally wins his first bet. That's
You're right. I'll finally win one when Lewis.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I know myself better than that. So
yeah. Drafting Cam Smith was an unconventional dice roll. Man, I said this last week, I feel like we got a first rounder the second round, and we got a second rounder with Achain in the third round. We made the most, unlike last year. We made the most of our picks.
But I think those are the lessons, unless before we close it up, is there anything else that you would think that Mike McDaniel needs to take from the whole Eric Spoelstra, and I don't know the Panthers coach's name.
Paul Maurice.
He was there for both. He was there hyping up both teams.
Yeah. I think that he'll take something from Spoelstra because he's friendly with Spoelstra and he'll visit. And Spoelstra will visit with him this summer at training camp for sure. And I think that they're friendly. So I'm pretty sure that they communicate. So, he'll impart some wisdom and he'll get something from him. Paul Maurice, I don't think so. It's just two so different sports.
I mean, I would argue that anybody, like, if you are a good coach, you can learn something that you can apply to your sport. The same way that you can apply Spoelstra to football, McDaniel can be applied to basketball. So, it's F them picks.
Hey, Alf, real quick question, completely off the subject. What'd you think of the final episode of Secession? Or do you even watch that show?
Yeah, it's great. No, I saw the final episode. It was great.
Okay. Now, I wasn't going to get deep into it, Lewis. I was just asking.
I don't even know what that show is.
You need to go. It's only 4 seasons. It's 40 episodes on Max or HBO Max, whatever. Go watch it. I'm not
paying for more things. If anything.
Oh, you don't have HBO Max? Okay. Well, then rip it from somewhere. I don't know, man.
5 Reasons Sports does not endorse show pirating.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, my fault. Or Price Picks. They also don't endorse it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're done, huh?
I mean, is there anything else we got to discuss real quick?
No, not that I know of.
Other than the fact that, listen, if anybody's wondering why I'm tweeting so much Heat lately, it's because the Heat are doing things the Dolphins are not. So I have to wait.
Yeah,
so
man.
I'm still going to watch basketball. Like I have something to enjoy. I need something to watch.
Yeah, we got the Heat finals, man. It's gonna be tough against Denver, but
Nikola Jokic. Oh,
yeah, more people are giving the Heat a better shot than I thought would. I saw Skip Bayless say.
Oh, really? They're gonna. You mean the
Heat in 6 today from Skip Bayless?
Okay, yeah, that's
he doesn't like European players though. Like he always has some kind of angle, and his angle is from watching him off and on for years. He does not like European players. He never has, and that's probably the only reason why. I'm going to be honest with you. That's probably the only reason why.
Skip liking the Heat in 6 is probably the death knell.
He had the Heat last night too, man. He had the Heat last night too, though.
No, he said the Celtics were going to win.
No. He had taken the Heat in Game 7. He took the Heat in Game 7. Shannon took the Celtics, and lost more Mountain Dew bets. So, all right, I guess.
Let's see what the Heat do. I will be very interested in seeing how they handle the whole thing. And F them subscription fees. Alrighty, so I guess that's going to be it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you haven't already done so, make sure you check out You Break Wheel Fix. I'm going to need that other graphic that I saw on 5 on the floor. But basically, just go reach out to Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 if you need to get your wheels fixed or if you just need to get your ride a new look. So just reach out to them at that number or at youbreakwheelfix.com to get an estimate in just minutes. And, of course, go to prizefix.com. Use the promo code 5. That's FIVE. Go and put in $100, and they will match your $100 and give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with before you even have to touch your deposit. All you have to do is just sign up using that promo code, and you can get started today. Taco Tuesday was today, and there's going to be more discounts. Nikola Jokic is a free square you can take advantage of. I will as soon as the playoffs start for them. The finals are on the way, so I'm going to take advantage of that while I can. So with all that being said, any final thoughts before we go?
No, that's it.
That's it.
All I got, man. It's May. It's June. It's getting to the... it's getting rough, but
I'm finally going to have some actual topics to talk about. Now, excuse me while I go and record Fins Nation and try to come up with a topic.
Yeah, we got less than 2 months, though, until training camp starts. So
hallelujah.
That's pretty exciting. We got 7 weeks or something, 7.5 weeks.
Still too long.
You're covering training camp, the whole thing, right, Al?
Yeah, the whole thing. I might even be going to by the way, I got announced today their
Houston Texans joint
practice. They're going to be doing their joint practices in Houston with the Texans. So I might be traveling out there for that.
Okay? And they're gonna do Atlanta in Miami. Is that correct?
Yes, they're gonna do Atlanta and Miami. Yeah.
What was it? No, it's not Atlanta. It's the Florida. What were they called?
Yeah,
the Florida Red Stallions.
Yeah, the Red Stallions, something like that.
Alrighty. Hasta la bye, folks. We will see you next time.